Our scriptures today are filled with a couple of themes. One is resurrection, of course, and the other is hope. I found a wonderful little story attributed to Don Shelby about a gift of hope. In the 70th year of her life, a woman got sick, very sick, and her health deteriorated rapidly. She was hospitalized, and the doctors told her son there wasn't much hope. She would be gone soon. The son was reluctant to share this news with his mother because her birthday was right around the corner. So instead he went out and he bought the most expensive nightgown and matching robe he could find and wrapped it up and brought it to her in the hospital. She opened it. She said it was lovely. She said it was way too expensive. She could tell. But then she said she really didn't want this and gave it back to him. She said instead, as she handed him a newspaper, she would prefer that he spent that money on a purse, a rather expensive purse. Well, he wanted to follow her wishes, so he went to the store and he bought the purse, but he noticed that it was really a purse for late spring or early summer. He couldn't understand what it was about, but he took the purse to his mother. She embraced it and she smiled because she knew that he believed she would be around to use it. Not only did she use that purse, but another half a dozen purses until her 83rd birthday. That purse was a gift of hope. Resurrection that we speak about, that we pray about, is an attitude. It's a perspective that finds hope in the hardest times and uncovers life among the devastated and the broken, that reveals light in the darkest night. Isn't that what we're experiencing these days in so many different ways across the country and around the world? This darkest night that many of us have never lived through before. In Ezekiel, the first reading we heard today, Ezekiel is speaking to the people of Israel while they're in bondage. They have been taken off their land, they have lost everything, and they have lost hope. The images of dry bones that are going to come back to life again in Ezekiel. And Ezekiel promises in the words of God that he will restore them to the fullness of life. And we see that same promise today in the gospel story of the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Martha and Mary are without hope. And Jesus comes to Bethany and he says, move the stone away. And he calls out on that hillside to his friend Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth. Resurrection isn't just a promise for the future. Jesus doesn't just do resurrection. Jesus is resurrection. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. And Jesus' presence brings hope for us today. Now, when we were doing the Mass schedule for Lent, way back in early February, nobody knew this was going to be happening. We wouldn't be celebrating Mass together as we always do. And so for this, the fifth Sunday of Lent, I was going to do a financial report. Now, don't get nervous. I'm not going to do that today. But I wasn't here in November. I was sick, so we didn't do our annual financial report. And today is always Catholic Charities Sunday. So I was going to wrap it all up in one. We're not going to do a financial report. But I do want to say something about Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities is so important for so many people in Western New York. And this Sunday and next Sunday is the annual Catholic Charities Appeal. Now, I know there are some people who are still angry about the whole issue of not having adoption by same-sex couples that was around 2 years ago. Well, that was then. This is now. And we're in desperate times, and people are desperately in need of hope. We've had some people come to the parish to offer hope. They've signed up with our Ministry of Presence, that's Deacon Paul and our parish nurse, Anne-Marie McIsaac. They've signed up with them to do whatever they can. We have one parishioner who calls Sister Jeremy, and she is a woman who's retired and has some discretionary income, and she offered to pay the expenses for a single mother and her 2 children for 4 months. We've had another person call and say they had lots of perishable food or unperishable food. There are 2 different people, and one of our parishioners is driving that around the neighborhood, passing it out to people on fixed incomes. Now, Catholic Charities offers all kinds of services from young to old. We have a counselor in our school. I'm not going to go through the whole list of what they offer, but they service over 100,000 people a year in Western New York. And it's not just for Catholics. Anyone that comes to the door can receive some kind of hope. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm barely making it now. I don't know where my next mortgage payment is going to come from, or my next rent. How am I going to pay my rent? Or how am I going to buy food for my kids? Well, you may not be able to do anything financially, but all of us can do something. Perhaps You can get out and you can offer an elderly neighbor to do their shopping for them if they can't leave the house. Perhaps you can call someone. Maybe you're a great conversationalist, and so you can call someone who's shut in all by themselves and just longing to hear a human voice. Don't talk about coronavirus. Don't talk about politics. Just talk about whatever can bring joy to someone. Maybe you have a neighbor who has lots of kids locked in the house. Maybe you can FaceTime them and play a game with the kids just to give the parents a break. All of us can do something. All of us can be the voice of Jesus on the hillside of Bethany saying, Lazarus, come out. And then he tells them, untie him and let him go free. That's what Jesus is asking us to do, to be that voice of hope for others. You know, some of you know that I love opera. And one of my favorite operas is by Arthur Honegger. It's called Joan of Arc at the Stake, with a text by the French poet Paul Claudel. And it starts with Joan of Arc about to die at the stake, and then St. Dominic comes down from heaven and goes through her whole life. And the last thing Joan of Arc says before she dies is this. She says, there is joy, and nothing is stronger. There is love, and nothing is stronger. There is God, and nothing is stronger. People need to hear those words today from all of us, words of hope, that there is God, and nothing is stronger.